Hey guys, welcome back to the bait shop. Today we're going to do something just a little bit different in this video. I'm going to talk to you guys about something that I struggle with ADHD, and that's winter fishing. Stick around, we'll get into it. Okay, one of the things that I have struggled with my entire life is being able to slow down and fish almost stupidly slow in the wintertime. I have severe ADHD and I want to be going all the time. I want to be on that reel crank, swimming a jig in or swimming a bait in. This is not the time of year for that. The fish are not looking for an active meal source. They are looking for something that basically looks dead on the ground. So what I do is I will take, this is my 3/8 ounce jig that I talked about earlier. This is the ball head jig, and I will take this jig mainly because it imitates a craw. I'll tie this up, I'll have this skirt just barely beyond the hook, and if I put a trailer on, I put a chunk trailer on. Something that doesn't really give off any action. It just is a little bit of bulk in the bait. What I will force myself to do is when I'm fishing, I will cast out, and no matter what, unless I see the line stop before I know the bait hits bottom, is I will count to 30. That gives me a good idea that this bait has hit the bottom, and if there's a fish around, it's given them time to sniff it out. Then, instead of, like I would in the summertime, having my rod tip way down and pop it up, I'll keep it at about a 20-degree angle and give it little pops. And I will give it one little pop, maybe, moving that rod tip depending on the length of rod. I usually use about a 6-foot rod for winter fishing. And moving that rod tip 1 inch can actually move that bait about 3 inches in the water. So I'll just barely move it so that this bait will it doesn't have to move far. And then I will put the rod up under my arm and sit there with it pointed in the same direction, not touching the reel. The only time I touch the reel is if I have severe excess slack. And then I count to 15. And then I give that rod just another little lift so that the jig moves just ever so slightly. It is something that is extremely hard for me to do because, like I said, my ADHD messes with me every single day. There's days that I struggle making videos and I have to have notes behind my phone, or I'm not going to remember what I'm supposed to be saying, and I'm going to stop the video 85 times in 2 sentences because I don't like what I said, or I misspoke, or I get confused in what I'm saying because I start saying one thing and then immediately jump over here and start talking about something else, and we bounce back and forth. But I will sit here and I don't touch the reel unless I'm reeling in slack or a fish bites. Now, one of the things that is very difficult to tell in the wintertime is when you get a bite. Bites in the wintertime compared to bites in the summertime or spring, late fall, you still will get a thump. A lot of times in this wintertime, your line will just slightly be moving. Your when you lift that jig up, it'll kind of feel like there's some pressure or some weeds on it like you would have in the summertime. You'll feel a little bit of pressure, and it just doesn't feel like when you've moved that jig recently. Go ahead and set that hook. Anytime you feel something that does not feel like just the jig, set the hook in the wintertime. Because a lot of the times that's going to be a fish. If it's not, it's no big deal. Let it fall back down to the bottom, reel your slack in, and let it sit. And again, those of us with ADHD, that is the hardest part, is to let it sit. One of the things that you have to do is train your brain to sit there and count. So if I am fishing tomorrow, if I go fishing tomorrow, I will sit there, I'll cast out. That initial cast, I count to 30 no matter what, unless I know it's going to take longer to hit the bottom. I count to 30. Then I give it a little bit of a pop, and then tuck the rod under my arm, making sure that I'm not pulling that bait when I do. I'll just tuck it in and set it, and I will count to 15 from there on out. That gives your brain something to focus on other than, I have to move this jig, I have to move this jig. I have to do something related to the fishing. Your brain is now focused on, I have to do something every 15 seconds. And it helps you focus on, okay, get to 15, move it. Get to 15, move it. An ADHD brain is great when there is some form of structure for them. It gives you something to focus on. It gives you a goal to achieve. And it gives you stability for your brain. Another thing that I do, instead of using a 1/4 ounce, I'll use a 3/8 ounce jig, because I can feel that jig along the bottom better. I can feel every time I hop that jig, I can feel just a little bit of weight. So I know that I'm moving the jig. I know that I'm still in contact with the bottom, but I know that that jig has moved. Whether it's an inch, 3 inches. Something else that I will do is I will picture this jig falling. So the top of the camera all the way down. It's falling slowly. It ain't going to fall this slow, but it's falling slowly. And then I picture it just laying on the... I'm going to do it back here because I know it cuts off. Falling slowly. And then I picture that jig just laying there. And that's when I start counting. If I haven't hit 30 yet, I continue counting to 30. If I have hit 30 yet and I know that the bait hadn't hit the bottom yet, I'm going to start counting to 15 when the bait hits the bottom. And I'm going to picture that jig laying there like a crawfish in the wintertime, just totally immobile, cold, Nobody likes to move around when they're cold, but they have to. So at 15, I'm going to try and move it about that far. If I move it further than that, no big deal, but that maybe 1 inch there is all the movement that you really have to have. If there's a bass around, it will be interested, but it's going to want this almost totally immovable. Dead sticking is one of the hardest things to do with ADHD, and it is totally understandable. Again, I've struggled with this since I was a child. I very rarely fish in the wintertime because of it. My ADHD actually gets worse in the wintertime because of the fact that it's cold. I don't really want to get around and move. I don't want to do a whole lot. So when I do go out and go fishing, it's, I'm going to sit here and just kind of wind this in, and I sit there and sing a little song in my head, and next thing I know, the jig's in, and I'm sitting there, well, I haven't gotten a bite today. I don't know why. I don't understand what's going on. I wish I was getting bites. It's because I'm not allowing myself to slow down. So when I do go fishing in the wintertime now, I force myself to slow down. One of the other things that I do is if things really, really, really get bad for me and I find myself just cranking it in slowly, not counting to 15, I will actually, if I'm fishing a place that I can set my rod down safely and not have to worry about if a fish does pick it up, it going in the water, I'll set my rod down and set my foot on it. That totally resets my brain, and I can start slowing back down again from there. Again, a mid-range, quarter ounce is just a little bit too small. I find myself reeling all the time with it and trying to swim it back in because I can't really feel real well with the rod tip and the rod, that subtle movement. Half ounce is just a little bit too large for winter fishing because it'll fall a little too fast. It gets a little bit more movement no matter what because a heavier weight falling. So I find that 3/8 ounce is beautiful medium. I don't typically use football head jigs in the wintertime because they're just sitting. When they're just sitting, if it's not a hard bottom, they have a tendency to try and get hung up in all the other stuff that's down there. They too do also tend to, when you if you're using them on a muddy bottom, settle into the mud, and then you have to give it a little bit more of a pop, so it forces that bait to move more. So I stick with my ball head jigs, and again, wintertime, you have to fish painfully slow. It is a struggle every single time I go out, especially anybody that has ADHD understands. It is extremely difficult to fish in the wintertime and do it so painfully slow that it feels like it's taking 2.5 years to get that jig from your initial cast back to you. You want it to feel like you are doing absolutely nothing, but at the same time you have to train your brain so that you aren't doing nothing and then you get back in a hurry every time. If you guys would like to have some more perspective videos of somebody that has ADHD on different fishing techniques, such as, finesse fishing, another thing that is difficult for a lot of people that have ADHD because of it being not being as you're not sitting there reeling in all the time, or you're not moving the bait all the time. Let me know in the comments. I know a lot of people struggle with ADHD, and a lot of us enjoy fishing because it gives our mind something to do. But if you want some more tips and tricks on how to help yourself become a better fisherman with ADHD, let me know, and I will try and put out some more videos like this. I appreciate you guys coming in and watching these videos. I really do. I don't want to beg for you to like and subscribe and all that sort of stuff, but it does help out the channel. If you like what you see, if you like the videos that I'm making, please feel free to subscribe to the channel. I would like to hit 50 subscribers before the end of the year. I know I've had a lot of people come over from TikTok and subscribe to me. I'm going to be doing some lead work videos coming up in the new year. I'm going to be doing some soft plastic stuff coming up in the new year. So if you're interested in those things, if you want to stick around for those, awesome. Again, I'm not going to beg for subscriptions, but if you do like what you see, if you like the perspective of somebody from an ADHD brain, go ahead and subscribe. I do appreciate you guys being here. And remember, try not to be boring.